Expecations.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lorraine
and Jennifer.
And this morning, we want you to have some realistic expectations about what we're going to talk about.
Expectations are not fun, though. Like,
you know what? I think they are. I think setting realistic expectations and letting people know in any situation what they can expect from a conversation, what they can expect from a product or a service actually will lead to higher satisfaction on the back end.
That's just what I was thinking. Like, if we all just talk, and this is how this is going to work, and this is how much time it's going to take, and we're just honest with each other, and working as fast as we possibly can, and whatever. If we explain that, then you have a better idea, and then you're not mad later because you're like, well, this didn't take very long. Well, you might not understand how long something takes because you've never had to do it.
And so as a service provider, I think my advice is when you oversell your capabilities, when you promise the moon, you're setting your client up to be annoyed at you. You're setting yourself up for failure. And so it may make it harder for your salespeople, but it will make it way easier for your execution and your delivery people if you are honest with customers about, look, it took God 7 days. Okay? He had 7 days, she had 7 days, but 7 days, it took time. Yeah. Let's take this back to our world too.
I was always taught under promise and over deliver. Mm-hmm. Like, you always think that if I just, tell them I can get it done tomorrow, even though it's probably going to take you to the day after, you're leaving a bad taste in their mouth. And you need to break down the steps that it's actually going to take to get to something. And I think a lot of times we get bored with those steps and those processes, but those processes make you that much better.
I actually, when I worked for Conseco, I ran a creative team, and my team was always optimistic about how quickly they could get things done. And so I always told them, add a day. Whenever you give me a time estimate, just add a day. And they would. And then I would turn around to whatever department we were working with, and I would add a day. Yeah. And what that meant was the client was expecting it that much later. And so we could work in peace. We could also not panic if something happened that distracted us. There wasn't this sense of, I can't take care of the emergency, I have to finish the deadline, or I can't finish on time. So I think from a company management standpoint, just internal managing the chaos, creating realistic expectations is very important.
Yeah. You don't. So I'll go to like what we have. When you get on an airplane and you're going to fly, and there is this checklist that the airline operator has to go through, pilot, you're feeling really safe that they've went through that checklist, even though they've done it 100 times. We do the same thing when it comes to marketing. We've built all these checklists, which are unfortunately constantly changing. So it's a little bit harder.
So yeah, there is that.
It's like, well, it changed yesterday.
Yeah.
But we have these checklists to make sure that we don't forget this and forget that. And in my world, I think a step that often gets skipped is the data collection and setting that all up correctly.
And, the for a client, if you're a customer, if you're working with a marketing agency, if you're working with any kind of organization that's doing work for you, on the one hand, you are like, I just wrote you the check. How soon do I get results?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you have to be realistic. I think you have to ask those questions about the deadlines so you can plan for that.
Yeah, and when they get results, and there is a marketing funnel, believe it or not, when you put something out, unless you're at the cash register and you're buying some bubble gum, like people
Mm-hmm.
don't just instantly buy. I get this question asked a lot. When can we expect results? And it's 50 million different questions. Like, if you don't have any body going to your website right now, I have no idea how your website is going to react. I can tell you 2.5% of people on normal will convert on the first time, but it's there's a lot of factors in there, and there is a steps in between that sometimes subconsciously happen in business and everything else. I think about business ideas.
Yes, I mean, when you have it, you're ready to launch a new business. You don't wake up in the morning and go, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to do this. Well, I mean, some people do. I've met those. I've met those people, and then a month later they're like, oh, I didn't think about the fact that if I was going to be in this business, I was going to need this raw material, or I was going to need to learn how to do this, or I didn't think about the fact that there's a product out there that competes. So if you're launching a new idea, you've got to be realistic about how long it's going to take to build awareness. I had an engineer one time who had developed a product that actually was a very cool product, but he thought everyone else would immediately get it, that they would just see the benefit.
Yeah.
Because he had spent 20 years thinking about it. And
Uh-huh.
so in his mind, it was, but it wasn't. There
Yeah.
needed to be that education phase, there needed to be that awareness. And, today, 20 years later, the product is successful. There is a market for it, but it did not happen overnight.
Yeah, those realistic expectations with yourself as a business owner. And I think enjoying the journey
Mm-hmm.
and not the destination. I did that for, I think, like over a decade. I thought there was going to be like this final destination and there's just going to be this rainbow there at the end. And you got to enjoy every day and set yourself with some realistic expectations on, like, okay, and you might not know until you get into it. And there's going to be this 1% of people that do just like instantly hit it, but that's like 1%.
And again, I think there's a lot of groundwork, even on the people who are overnight successes, that they were doing behind the scenes to get ready for that moment. And so there's this new business and it launches and it's the darling of Silicon Valley. But if you go back and you do your homework, you're going to find that they worked for 3 other startups that failed gloriously.
Right.
And that's okay. It's okay to be realistic. And I think part of realistic expectations, and we haven't really talked about this, we talk about it's going to take time, you're going to have to be patient. One of the other realistic expectations, and this one hurts, is that some things that you're working on just won't work.
That's okay.
But that, okay, we know that. But if I have just spent $5,000,
Yeah.
$10,000,
Yep.
getting to that moment where you're like, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
I've given it enough time, and that's part of it. But you need to be prepared that there's a moment where you're going to pull the plug and say, you know what, we've given this a really good shot. It really isn't working. Now, a good shot is not 30 days on a marketing plan.
No. But that's why you get in business, because you're willing to roll the dice. But don't be upset when it didn't work out. Don't take it personal. Failure should be part of the process of learning. how to get better and be like, okay, that didn't work. All right, I got to try something else. You're not going to have $1 million ideas every day. You might see that on TV with Shark Tank and things like this, but like, that just doesn't happen all the time. So I mean, there's just so many different ways to look at realistic expectations and multiple things. Just breaking it down that there are steps we have to do. I think the internet has ruined us with this instant gratification, and so we think things are going to instantly happen, and they're not.
Absolutely. You're dead on. And with that, I'm going to put a pin here. If your expectation was that we were going to solve the world's problems, sorry. But if you're looking for someone to help you solve them, definitely you want to talk to Jen.
We'll get this right one of these times.
I just because the camera's backwards, and so talk to Jen. And her team can help you sort through the chaos of some of these marketing questions.
And if you're trying to get ahead, definitely go over with Lorraine and the digital toolbox. And there are lots of resources in there for you to kind of like understand all these different marketing concepts. And it might not come naturally to you. And obviously, she has years of experience, and I'm going to be adding more courses there.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, we'll see you next time.
All right, bye.